1, 2, 3 minuses that were all very impactful. Like I said, a missed touchdown run. I don't remember the second one. And then the fumble. Now, to clarify, the AP fumble, that was 90% great defensive play. KJ Wright got to him first and grabbed and held onto his left arm that he wasn't carrying the ball with, so that when Cam Chancellor got there second, he was able to simply out-arm Adrian Peterson 2-1 to rip the ball away. It was nothing that Adrian Peterson was doing incorrectly as far as how he goes about running with and carrying the ball. The only blame that you could put on AP in that situation was that he was trying to do too much, that he should have been on the ground by that point in the play, because we had already gotten the first down. And we were in the lead, and he doesn't need to stay on his feet and get that extra 2-3 yards. So, but that's not necessarily on him to know on his own too. It's up to a coach to, express that, should that be the command or the order, however you want to look at it. So yes, of course there's some accountability because it was in his hands, but way much more so than not, the AP fumble was a phenomenal two-man defensive effort, not Adrian Peterson being bad in any way, shape, or form. Then finishing out the running backs, Jerick McKinnon was a 4/3, too many minuses than he's been used to. Asiata barely got a +1. I pitied him that one. And Zach Line didn't play very well, 1/2. So that gave our running backs as a group a 21/12 +9 grading, so fairly good. But all three of their impact, they had 3 impact plays, all of which were negative. So, kind of erases that 10, that 9-point positive margin a lot of what you're doing there. And then finishing out the offense, wide receivers were a 9/2 +7, not too bad, but they did have 2 significant minuses. Or no, they just had 1. Why did I write 2? They only had 1 significant minus, and that was on Mike Wallace, who could have recovered that frickin' AP fumble. He was in a perfect position to recover the AP fumble. He saw it. He was sitting right there, and he's the first person that ball touches, if you watch the replay closely, after the fumble. It bounces off of his left arm like he's a wall. He doesn't even close his arms to catch it or react to the ball, and that's it. Next thing you know, it's in Cam Chancellor's hands. So Mike Wallace could have, bailed us all out by just catching the dang football that he was staring at but not reacting to on the AP fumble. Jarius Wright was a +2 and Stephon Diggs was a +5. No negatives for either of those guys. However, Jarius Wright was the one missed on what should have been a touchdown pass on our second possession, our first scoring possession of the game. Should have been a touchdown, not a field goal. Teddy missed a easy, wide open Jarius Wright right in the middle of the field on the goal line for an easy 7-0 lead touchdown. That was a huge, another key factor in the game. Our first drive, we marched the ball down the field, should have got a field goal, bumped ourselves back a little bit, didn't get any points. The next drive, we ended up with a field goal off of a great special teams play, where we had phenomenal field position. We won that battle as well all day. But it came to 3rd down and goal, and for whatever reason, Teddy Bridgewater threw the ball to Jerick McKinnon, who was at about the 4 or 5 yard line, instead of throwing the ball to Jarius Wright, who was wide open in the middle of the field on the goal line for an easy touchdown. All these things result in the outcome when they are all put together. So in all honesty, when I said I'd tell you what the score should have been. As I was going through the game film, at the end of the first quarter, the score should have been 10-0 Vikings. Halftime, same score, 10-0 Vikings. End of the third quarter, it should have been 16-0 Vikings. If that would have been the case, nothing. The fourth quarter can still play out exactly the same way it did, and we're still victorious convincingly. That's how much better we had controlled the game. Not necessarily how much better we played, but how much better we controlled the game than they did for the first three quarters. And then it all fell apart. Lastly, on offense, our tight ends were 5 over 3 collectively as a unit, with one big play, one significant play that was a positive, and that was by Kyle Rudolph making a phenomenal catch to get us into easy, which was supposed to be easy field goal range. Before that, drawing the pass interference that got us, got the ball moving. He was shut out in the first half, -2, but then 3 pluses in the second half. And Michael Pruitt was a 2 pluses over 1 minus as well. So there's your offensive breakdown. Tight ends +1, wide receivers +2 for tight ends, +7 for wide receivers, +9 for running backs, +10 for quarterbacks, +2 for offensive line, -4 for the offensive coordinator, +5, -4 for Norv, +5 for Zimmer. And then with our new impact scores, Zimmer was a +1, -1. Norv was just a flat out -4 on the impact scale. Teddy was a -2 +1 on the impact scale. AP was a -3 on the impact scale. The offensive line was a -1 on the impact scale. Kyle Rudolph was a +1 on our new impact scale. Mike Wallace was a -1 on our new impact scale. Now moving on to and we did do special teams a little bit as well. Let's finish on the special teams. Walsh was a +5 with a +1, -1 on our impact scale. Locke was a -1, 3 over 4 with a -1 impact scale rating, and special teams was a +3, 5 over 2 with a +1 impact. And then let's see, we had Adam Thielen a +1 with a big impact play on special teams. Cordero Patterson a 1 over 1 regular rating, and Marcus Sherrills a 1 over 1 regular rating. All right, now we move to defense, and this is where it was pretty much all good news, even from some less than the usual suspects. So, starting on the defensive line, our defensive ends as a unit were 17 over 8, +9 is what that is, and a +1 on the impact meter. Our D tackles were also a +1 on the impact meter, and a 9 over 4 +5. So that made your defensive line 26 over 12 +14 with a +2 on the impact meter. Phenomenal. B-Rob 2 over 2. Danielle Hunter 6 over 2. Everson Griffin, a beast 2 weeks in a row, 9 over 4 with an impact play. Linval 4 over 2. Floyd 3 over 2 with an impact play, and Tom Johnson a +2. So phenomenal play from the defensive line on the Viking standpoint across the board for the most part of the game. Linebacking core had a very, very good game as well. Primarily Eric Kendricks, the middle linebacker, one of the best games I've seen him have all year, maybe his best game as a pro yet. The linebacking group was 11 over 8 +3 with a +1 impact. Breaking that down individually, Barr was a 3 over 3 even, which is very rare. He is usually the one carrying this group, but not last week. Him and Kendricks switched spots. Barr had the Kendricks numbers last week. Kendricks had the Barr game this last week. Kendricks finished 8 over 3 +1 impact. Wow. That's a great game for your rookie middle linebacker in the playoffs. And then Chad Greenway contributed a -2, no pluses. He contributed nothing in the game, at least as far as actual play goes. So that leaves us with the secondary. Our corners were an 11 over 8 +3 with a +1 impact and a -3 impact. So huge impact, negative impact from our corners to go along with our running backs and our offensive line. And our offensive coordinator, I should say, on our impact meter. But anyway, continuing, Xavier Rhodes, our elite shutdown corner, had an excellent game, 5 over 3. One of those minuses was a penalty that was a bad, inexcusable penalty. Should have been a freaking interception. but instead he just keeps running. The ball's right behind him, drops like at his heels. He just keeps running forward, staring at the receiver, and face plants into him. Basically, that play was pathetic. But for the most part, Xavier Rhodes played a great game as usual. Like I said, a -1 on the impact meter though with that penalty. Terrence Newman was a -1, went out with injury. That proved to be very significant in the fourth quarter. Captain Munnerlyn normally has a great game. He was the most significant one. He made the most significant mistake to me in the whole game. The play was when he whiffed on Russell Wilson, allowed him to escape out of the pocket and bomb it down to Tyler Lockett. That was the play of the game, the turning point. That play opened the floodgate and all the bad things that happened after it. Without that play, if we simply just tackle Russell Wilson there like we should have, there was 2-3 guys up the middle of the field. He had no reason to over pursue, even though he said, well, I saw the ball on the ground, so I was going for the ball. That's my instincts, what I'm coached to do. Not in that situation. In that situation, with the proper game understanding and football IQ, you're supposed to stay in your lane and keep the safe play. You're basically the safety on that play. You've got help as well. 2-3 guys right there coming up the middle. Nowhere for him to go unless you give him a place to go. And Munnerlyn gave him a place to go. So Captain Munnerlyn was a 2/2 with the biggest -1, biggest single -1 on the impact meter. Trey Waynes played phenomenal again, which is a great sign. He was a +3 with a +1 impact rating. And then, as I mentioned, Newman went out with injury. Waynes came in, was playing for him. Waynes then went out with injury, and in the fourth quarter, Josh Robinson had to come in. This guy shouldn't even still be on the team. Why isn't Marcus Sherrills playing defensive back? If he's just the punt returner, he has no business being on this team. I thought he was depth at defensive back. We all know how the Josh Robinson situation plays out. Okay, they throw the ball to the guy he's guarding, they get touchdowns, we lose. The end. We've seen that show a million freaking times. But alas, he was out there being called upon, and that blew up in our faces. He was a 1/3 with a... Yeah, I actually wrote that down wrong. Oh, because one was a special teams. Yes, he was a 1/2 with one of those 2 minuses being huge impactful, where he broke down on that play, and then the other one being the actual touchdown that was scored on it. So basically his 2 errors gave up that touchdown of the Seahawks, along with Munnerlyn. But he shouldn't have had to make that first error or second error if Munnerlyn would have just did his job on that one freaking play. Seriously, if you want to boil it down to one guy making one mistake on one play, Captain Munnerlyn is the guy's head who you should be calling for, the guy who should be, he fire him. He lost us the game. If you have to be that idiot, to be that simple, that black and white, he's the guy, not Blair Walsh. Okay. Finishing out with our safeties, Harrison Smith was 3/1, Sendejo 1/3, so that gives our secondary rating a 15/12 +3. Like I said, on the impact meter, +1, -3. So, whoop-de-doo, what does it all mean, Basil? What can we learn now that I have given you all of the facts and the analysis of, how good everybody actually did, how bad they actually did? What does it all mean? Well, we are going to take all the information that we just got, and we are going to play our first ever, hopefully debut of our signature trademark game here on Balls Deep Sports Talk, and we are calling it simply the Blame Game. That's right. Welcome to the Blame Game, where your host, Scotty Ball, tells you exactly who's to blame for what went wrong and how much of the blame they are to deserve. Can you correctly guess the right order of blame? We'll find out on the Blame Game. Okay, alright, sorry, getting carried away. So yes, our first ever game here is the Blame Game. I explained how it works. Now that we have the topic, we have the information, I am going to give you the 4 causes, the 4 most significant primary standout sources of blame and responsibility